Parliamentarians for Global Action is an international organisation of which members of democratically elected parliaments belong. People are individuals and they're free to join. We have around about 1,300 members worldwide. We're represented in over 131 parliaments. And of course what that means is that we're able to tackle issues on a global basis, and it's mostly work done by members who are backbenchers, and it means that we're able to hold governments to account in many different areas, whether it's peace, democracy, the rule of law. We've also had a lot of work to do with the establishment of the International Criminal Court, which is there of course for crimes against humanity, crimes of genocide and the like. And it's run very much on the same lines as a parliament, in that the executive is like the cabinet and the International Council is like the parliament, which holds the executive accountable.
So really you began your involvement with them from a sort of almost a moral stance of wanting to make things better, not just a political appointment. You became involved from a moral point.
Oh yes, very much so, wanting to make the world a better place, because I believe that, you know, even as a parliamentarian, it should be leadership by example. And I saw the opportunity here to be able to lead in that particular area, and especially in things like, I mean, I've got a real passion for ethical conduct for parliamentarians. And so I saw this as an opportunity to be able to work here along these particular lines. And some years back, we actually held a forum in the US Senate on the whole issue of ethics and accountability. But one of the difficulties we had was getting funding from some of the donors to actually look into this area. I'm hopeful, of course, that we may be able to do something during the term of my presidency on that particular aspect.
You've made real headway in making wrongdoers accountable. Is that relatively new on a global basis?
I think it goes back to around about 78. We had a member called Arthur Robertson. He went on to become the president of Trinidad and Tobago. And he had the idea that we needed to have a court of last resort, an international criminal court. And as a member of Parliamentarians for Global Action, he fostered that idea with many other members of Parliament who wanted to work on this whole issue of world peace. And I'm aware of a former colleague here many years ago who was involved with, when he was in PGA, they actually helped formulate a meeting between Neil Kinnock and Gorbachev. And they were doing it as members of Parliament, and it was about the breaking down of the Cold War. And it's at that sort of level that members of Parliament can be very effective in bringing about change. And those are some of the things that the cabinet, if you like, or the executive level can't always get into. But members of Parliament acting in an individual capacity with a group of other people who feel passionate and strongly about these issues, that's where a difference can be made.
What other issues does the organisation focus on?
Well, we actually have 3 programs at the moment. There's the International Law and Human Rights, which is to do the International Criminal Court. There's the Peace and Democracy program. I was the convener of that before becoming president. And at the moment, we are working very strongly on the Arms Trade Treaty. We want a more controlled system of illicit arms than what there are now. We have organised a petition, and in New Zealand here, a significant number of members of Parliament in New Zealand have signed that petition to establish an arms trade treaty, and where we've got other members around the world, they're in their own parliaments getting MPs to sign these petitions, because that there is collective, and people are speaking, of course, not only for themselves, but really for their constituents, because our constituents are not the sort of people who want to go to war, and I mean they expect politicians to be able to work and to control these things at international level, and that's what we're doing. So that's the Arms Trade Treaty, and that's being done through the Peace and Democracy program. And the other program that we have is the Sustainable Development Health. Our convener for that one is Dr. Donya Aziz, a very bright young woman, comes out of Pakistan, And we are working in Islamic countries, bringing these whole issues of HIV/AIDS to those countries. And you'll be aware, of course, that I travelled a couple of years back or more. It would have been to Pakistan. We had a number of meetings there, raising the issue of reproductive health, care about individuals and that, with local politicians and people who are involved in some of the tribal areas. Now that's things we could do at that level. Couldn't be done at the higher level.
A little bit closer to home, one of your passions is improving the behaviour of parliamentarians. How's that going?
Well, I've been trying for a number of years, you know. I've done all the right things. I was advised to take the issue initially to the Standing Orders Committee, and I did. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the first 2 times I got no response at all. The 3rd time they said no. So I said, well, that leaves me no alternative. I have to introduce legislation. So in 2009, I drafted a private members bill and put it in the ballot. It's like a lotto, you know. They put the ball in. I haven't had it drawn yet. But unfortunately, the last Parliament, what happened was that there was a sort of bank up of private members bills. And because they weren't being heard, others couldn't get in. So I'm hoping it might clear in this Parliament. So the idea is that once that bill comes out of the ballot, it'll give members the opportunity to focus their minds on this whole issue of ethical behaviour. Because see, in Parliament, and outside Parliament, there are no ethical guidelines about how members should conduct themselves. And someone should not underestimate the difficulty that a new Member of Parliament faces when they come in here. You know, what is expected of me? I mean, there's nothing. Most parliaments, Western parliaments around the world now, and even moving into the Islamic world now, they have actual codes of ethics or codes of conduct of what they expect their members to do. And we're falling behind. I want our profession to be seen as a profession. I mean, people here really are highly educated in the main. They're very capable individuals. And I think that we need, as an organisation, to be able to do something about that.